and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Yorkboat's River Duchess. I'm your Captain Jono, and your crew member downstairs is Matt. Please can I have your attention for a moment? We want to make a brief safety announcement. Aboard this boat, we have more than enough life-saving equipment for everybody on board. She's on the top deck, right in the front of the wheelhouse, we have point apparatus. Life rings can be found around the railings of the top and back deck. We also have firefighting equipment on board. Fire extinguishers can be found at either end of the lower saloon. And one small one next to me here in the wheelhouse. We've also got a first aid kit on board. This is kept downstairs behind the bar. Now, in the most unlikely event of an emergency, please remain calm. There's a carefully turning instructions given to you by myself or the crew. And if you are asked to evacuate the boat, please do so calmly by the nearest and safest exit. For anybody in the saloon downstairs, your main exits are at the front and the back of the boat, and the middle room is on either side will slide open to make additional exits. If anybody has any questions regarding safety or anything else for that matter, then please don't hesitate to ask. Either myself or the crew. Now the bar will be open shortly with a selection of tea and coffee, beers, wines and spirits, plenty of soft drinks all for sale down there. You're more than welcome to bring them on to top deck. But please do be aware this is a non-smoking vessel, and that includes any orphan areas. Thank you, and welcome aboard. We'll only be a brief stop, as we have somebody there selling tickets already. However, I do have to repeat the safety announcement for the benefit of those joining us there at Menwood. So if you fail to commit it to memory, you will get an additional opportunity in just a moment. I'm your captain, Joe, and your crew member downstairs is Matt. Please give your attention for a moment while I make a brief safety announcement. On board this boat we have more than enough life-saving equipment for everybody on board. Just on the top deck, right at the back of the boat, we also have, right at the front of the boat we have point apparatus. Life rings can be found around the railings at the top and back deck. We also carry firefighting equipment on board. Fire extinguishers can be found at the other end of the lower saloon, and one small one next to me here in the River Ouse. We've also got the first aid kit on board. Downstairs behind the bar. Of emergency, please remain calm. This is any instructions given to you by myself or the crew. And if asked to evacuate the boat, please do so calmly by your nearest and safest exit. For anybody in the saloon downstairs, you may enter at the front and the back of the boat, and the main windows on either side will slide open. If anyone's got any questions regarding safety or anything else for that matter, please don't hesitate to ask either myself or the crew. We'll be more than happy to help. Now just to let you know, with the rain starting to come, there is a number of umbrellas just next to the River Ouse here in a silver pipe on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side of our house. Please feel free to help yourself to one of them if you would like. That's more than fine by me. There is actually two more downstairs if anybody needs one. The River Bridge was originally built in 1844. Now carries the main line to the East Coast Holiday Resorts in Scarborough and finally. This last renovation was earlier this year and was predicted to cost £5 million to replace both spans. By the end of the year, they had managed to replace, by the end of February, they had managed to replace all the spans. However, the entire cost of the bridge was already over £10 million. Now when the bridge was built, it was originally an arch bridge and had wooden girders. The brackets for these wooden girders can still be seen around all three pillars as we go underneath. As we come out the other side of the bridge, take a look over on your left hand side, just through the trees there and in the distance, you should see a large blue and grey building. This building belongs to the National Rail Museum. Now the National Rail Museum was first opened in 1975 by the Duke of Edinburgh. It very quickly outgrew its original home and was closed at the end of 1990. This exhibition here was reopened in 1992, with the previous one having been so very successful. That's spelled O-U-S-E. The word ooze is derived from a Saxon word, woosa, meaning clear water. I'm not sure I would have called it that, but anyway, its tributaries are the Nib, the Swale and the Ewer, and it becomes the Ouse 10 miles upstream of here, where it joins with the Ouse Gilbeck. Now the entire catchment area of the River Ouse is actually the Yorkshire Dales. This does have some reason for the brown tinge in the water. Some of the Ouse's tributaries flow through a very pretty countryside. This is what we can see. It's actually the residue from the peat which stains the water this colour. Well, the peat has the same effect on the water as your tea bags do in your tea. In fact, in the past they would have used peat to stain leather. If anybody would like to come and sit back on the top deck, if you just speak to Matt downstairs at the bar, he'll be more than happy to sort you out with some cloths to wipe your chairs. Otherwise, for those of you who are already on top deck, I do have one here right next to me if you want to dry your seats. I will try and point it out to you, however they are notoriously hard to spot. Generally all you see is a blue flash as they come flying past the boat. Well, the population of grey-lag geese in the city has travelled over the past few years. This is not surprising as they originate from the Arctic. The only known predator is said to be a polar bear. I'm yet to spot a polar bear in York. We're going to carry on in this direction. In another 28 miles we'll reach the ancient city of Ripon. Fortunately that is a little bit ambitious for an hour cruise. It would take us roughly 9 hours to reach Ripon from here. We'll need a much smaller boat than this to get us through the locks in this direction. So I think we'll turn around in a minute and head back downstream. Before we do, boats don't have indicators like cars, we use sound signals. If you hear 2 blasts on the horn, the signals we are turning left or to port. 1 blast on the horn signals we are turning right or to starboard. 3 blasts on the horn will signal we are going astern or backwards. Effectively, putting on your brakes. anybody would like a photo of the Minster from the river, I suggest you prepare your cameras now. Despite its prominent position in York, Minster is really only visible from a very few places on the river. If you take a look through the trees and over in the distance on the left-hand side, you should see it coming into view. And here we're looking at the west end of the nave. Those trees are the two west towers with their crown of pinnacles, and beyond them is the Grand Central Tower. Now the Grand Central Tower actually stands at 213 feet high, and is actually the highest point in the city. If you have to be fit, you can climb to the top of this tower. However, you do have to be fit, as it's up 276 months. Then after the war, they had to return the 2 million piece jigsaw back to the window. Surprisingly, this only took 2 months. The top cream building directly in front of us now is the Royal York Hotel, and this building was actually built alongside York train station and called itself the Station Hotel for a number of years. That wasn't until the Queen of England at the time came to stay here in York. She stayed in there for one night, changing its name. Although I do believe that when she stayed here in York, she actually said that she would never return to York as it was the dirtiest place she'd ever been. She never did end up coming back. The residence does have something to do with the size of its catchment area in the Yorkshire Dales, where it connects over 2,000 square kilometres of land drainage. And all of that water has to flow straight through the centre of York. If you take a look over on the left-hand side here, just through the trees, you'll notice this green grassy mound. Notice how this green grassy mound slowly becomes a red brick wall. Slightly further on downstream. This red brick wall runs down the middle of the gardens on the left-hand side here. And both of these are actually a flood defence system for this part of the city. In November 2000, the river rose to 17 foot 10 inches, nearly 6 metres above normal, and actually just a couple of inches off the top of that red brick wall then. In fact, the roof of my warehouse today would have at that time been sitting just below the height of the water, meaning everybody on top deck, including myself, would have actually been sat underwater at that time. The river rises significantly, the council come round and they close off all the grey or black steel doors to hold the water out. And then when the water subsides, they come round and open them all up again. Now it's not only the houses on the left-hand side here that this barrier protects, there's another 700 homes behind. The wooden structure around the centre of pillar of Scarborough Bridge here is called a stile. This stile was really used in the days when boats didn't have engines, where either it would have protected the bridge against collision from any one of these vessels. Really redundant today, the only time it's used is during the flood, to protect the bridge against any debris or trees floating downstream which could damage it in any way. If you take a look just over the top of the red van over on the left hand side, coming over the top of St Mary's Tower there, you should be able to see through the trees a black and white timber frame building. Now I will tell you a little bit more about this in just a second. So this timber frame building actually stands in an area of parkland known as Museum Gardens. Now they get this name due to the presence of the Yorkshire Museum. However, they were laid down here in the 12th century to house St Mary's Abbey. Sadly, St Mary's Abbey is no longer due to the dissolution of the monasteries. However, the ruins of this building can still be seen through the tree, right at the top of the gardens. Although you do have to be inside the gardens to see them. Now this Black and white timber frame building that I was pointing out a second ago is just about to come through the trees again. This building is called the Hospitium and actually dates back to the 14th century when it was used to provide accommodation to the pilgrims of St. Mary's Abbey. The only reason that this building actually survived the dissolution of the monasteries was by being sold off as a private dwelling. Now the museum itself is housed in a neoclassical Tempest Anderson Hall. Tempest Anderson, by the way, was a local 19th century scientist. It was opened in 1830 by the Yorkshire Philosophical Society and is actually home to some of the richest archaeological finds anywhere in the UK. You can see this building just through the gap in the trees, right at the top of the hill. Now the bridge in front of us here is Lemby Bridge. Lemby Bridge is the first of York's two cast iron road bridges. It's actually the only River Ouse on a single span. It was designed by Thomas Page and was built in 1863. When it was built, it replaced the ferryman John Lehman, who used to operate across the river here. Unfortunately, John Lehman was made redundant when the bridge was built. However, the City Corporation did graciously give him £15 on a horse and cart to compensate him for the loss of his livelihood. He later sold the horse and cart for £25. As we come through the bridge, we actually re-enter the medieval city of York. That's because Lemby Bridge is built in line with the medieval city wall. As we come through the bridge, look over on the left-hand side. This is our boatyard here. There's actually been a boatyard here since 1863. However, there is evidence of the buildings going back another 100 years before this. Now our boatyard runs in front of the Guildhall. This Guildhall dates back as far as the 15th century, at least in part. It was, shall we say, architecturally challenged by the German Luftwaffe in 1942, where they gutted the entire building. We believe they were aiming for the train station. They clearly missed. After an extensive rebuild right for like, it was re-entered in the 1960s to house the council chambers until 2014. Now this building is actually built out of York Yellowstone, as is the Minster, the Viva Insurance building behind us, the City Rose, as well as a number of other buildings in York. Now York Yellowstone actually appears to clean itself due to a chemical reaction with water. And there's an amazing sun trap on a sunny day. Over on the right hand side is the Parkin Hotel. Now this building was previously known as the Viking Hotel. When it was built on the site of the Dublin Stones. This is the second tallest building in York. There is actually a bylaw in York that states nothing is allowed to be built taller than the Minster. So I won't find any skyscrapers in York. Now when this building was built, it did actually win an architectural award. Personally, I have no idea why. And the bridge directly in front of us here is Ouse Bridge, the oldest bridge in York, built in 1820. It's actually the fifth bridge to occupy the site, the first one being built here in the 9th century AD. Sadly, they've been falling down ever since. The Untitled Bridge had 5 arches. On it stood 2 houses, a prison, a chapel and some shops. Would have looked very impressive in its day, being twice as tall. Sadly, it too fell down under its own weight. Then there was this bridge here, Ouse Bridge. Now Ouse Bridge is actually built in 2 halves. The upstream side first, and then the downstream side. Now this was actually to keep the flow of traffic open, as at the time there was no other place to cross the river but here. Look very carefully as you go underneath, and you should be able to see the split between the 2 bridges built side by side. As you come over the other side of the bridge, take a look over on your left hand side. You'll notice there's a brown and white timber frame building there. Now this building is called King's Arms Pub, or more commonly known as the pub that floats. Popular watering hole in more ways than one. It was the first building to be affected by flooding. During the worst floods in recent years, the water rose to the brown beam halfway up the building. During lesser floods, the landlord has been known to hold canoe parties in his main bar. Well, the long we're sailing through the old port of York. At one point this port would have been second only in size to ports in London. With King Staith on your left and Queen Staith on your right, Staith is actually a Norse word, meaning landing stage or place to moor your boat. In fact, if anybody was caught mooring their boat here while the King and Queen were moored, they would have been instantly beheaded. However, there is evidence of so many boats mooring here at one time photographs show people walking from boat to boat to get across the river. Impressive. I will point out where I've seen these photographs in just a minute, but before I do, if you can use your imagination, all the buildings on the right hand side of this riverbank here would have at one time been warehouses. The last remaining warehouse is the bonding warehouse. That's the building with the white railings just before the bridge. Now the bonding warehouse was built in 1875 and was used to store goods, take payments on bonds, taxes and cargoes coming in and out of the city. Recently renovated after the interior of this building was actually severely damaged in the flooding of 2000. A penthouse flat in the bonding warehouse today will set you back £500,000, and also £1 million. The bridge in front of us here is Gate Bridge. This is the second of the Oaks 2 cast iron road bridges. It's actually the only, the lower left-hand arch of this bridge was designed to open to allow toilet boats to pass through. Like the building on the left-hand side was used to store the landing gear below and the toll office at the top. The arch was last raised in 1971 to allow a Royal Navy minesweeper through to the city on a courtesy visit. Sadly, the lifting gear has since been removed and the bridge will never open again. Now there was some disagreement over the final design and the predicted cost of this bridge. Again, it was Thomas Page's design that was chosen at the cost of £20,000. By the way, Thomas Page also designed London's Westminster Bridge. You may be able to work out the similarities. Sadly, Thomas Page died in 1844 before the bridge was complete, and his son George had to take his place. Finally opened to passages in 1881, 1881 and still not quite complete. It already cost over £50,000. Hence the need for a toll office. The area of land on the right hand side would have at one time been a port. It's actually where the cargoes were brought to York for the chocolate factories, cargoes of cocoa beans and flour. In fact, the green and white barge coming up on the right hand side here, MV2, is actually one of the barges that did bring cargoes here to York for the chocolate factories. MV2 is of a Humber keel design and was built in 1904. The letters MV in its name stand for motor vessel, which it became later on in its life. If you'd like to own MV2 as a houseboat here in York, you can do. It has just come up for sale with its moorings. It would set you back £500,000. That's cheap at half the price, and better than any penthouse flat in my opinion. Now the area of land on the right hand side before it was a port would have actually been a shipyard. This is where they built ships and they launched them into the river. In fact, the road coming down on the right hand side here would have actually been the slipway. This is where they launched the ships into the river. Now at the time there would have been no buildings on the land except for one. That's the slip-in pub. It's halfway up this road on the right hand side. Slip-in pub is an amazing place to go for a pint in the evenings. I really do recommend it, and on a sunny day with its beer garden, it's a lovely place to sit out in the afternoon. However, that's not why. If you look straight on downstream from here, you'll notice Millennium Bridge. Millennium Bridge is a stainless steel structure weighing 250 tons. It was intended to be built for the millennium, but sadly it wasn't quite complete until the end of April 2001. This bridge was built and cost over £4 million. It was funded by the National Lottery, the Millennium Foundation and a number of businesses in the local area. Now it is actually designed to look like a bicycle wheel, with the main arch of the bridge being the rim, the support cables the spoke, and the bridge itself being the hull of the bicycle wheel. When the council built this bridge, they weren't quite sure what they were going to build here, and they asked the members of the public to come up with a number of different ideas. Obviously this is the one that won, however it wasn't one of my favourite. One of my favourite was added by a 9-year-old lad who didn't quite get the idea of putting a bridge across the river. He designed himself a very clever steam-powered catapult to throw people across the river. Definitely a lot more entertaining, but perhaps not quite as safe. Sadly, he didn't win. Now that we finish our turn, take a look over on the right hand side, just through the trees here, you'll notice a small stone building, just in line with this viewing platform here. This is actually an 18th century folly, known as Piking Well or Our Lady's Well. It covers a drinking water well believed to have been sunk by the Romans. At the time of that well, the river would have been tidal, meaning it was salty. It would have also been very dirty, as it was the only way of disposing. That is my opinion. I'll let you decide for yourself. The river in front of us is the mouth of the River Foss. Nowadays, the River Foss is really only navigable for about a mile. During the 18th century, you could have actually navigated on the River Foss for anywhere up to 11 miles. When the Foss was fixed in place, it would have been a marsh. That's why we're finding city walls between the Red Towers and the Red Dot Castle. While the castle still stood here in York, the River Foss would have actually fed the castle most. So the Blue Bridge that spans the mouth of the River Foss is actually called Blue Bridge, believe it or not. It's not the first bridge to stand here. The first one was built in 1763. They've been painted blue ever since. Blue Bridge was built to connect New York with an area of common land known as St. George's Field. Now today St. George's Field is more commonly known as St. George's Car Park. However, although it being common land, there is actually a number of bylaws on it. On the name states there must be a fair held here at least twice a year. In fact, to this day, there's a fair held there every Easter. The farmers of York may graze their cows and sheep on the land. The ladies of York may actually bring their washing to hang out amongst the trees. In fact, all the boys over the age of 10 in York must actually practice their archery here at least once a week. Not where. Now, the good news to you was used to determine whether a lady was a witch or not. And there it is, they would step into her chair, dunk under the water for 3 or 4 minutes. When she was brought back to the circus, she was dead, well then she was clearly not a witch. She would have been given a sincere apology and a proper Christian burial. However, when she was brought back to the circus, she was alive. Well, this meant she was definitely a witch, and she had used the powers of darkness to keep herself alive. She would have been dried off and burned at the stake that night. Either way, she either ended up dead or she ended up dead. Now you could win a short ride on the donkey stool for being a brewer off bad beer, a barmaid selling short measures, or even a baker off bad bread. Also got it on very good authority that nagging wives could be nominated for a ride on the donkey stool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we're first Gate Bridge, we actually re-enter the main university city of York. This does actually mark the end of the cruise, or at least the first stop of our cruise. This stop here is Staith. Now Staith is closest to the Castle Museum, Clifford's Tower, the Shambles, the Dungeons, the Orvic Viking Centre, and it's also slightly closer to Market Street of York. Second of our 2 stops is River Bridge. River Bridge is closest to the Minster, the Museum Gardens, National Rail Museum, the railway station, slightly better to Betty's tea rooms, as well as the York Tourist Information Centre. If you're unsure which one is best for you to do this at, then please feel free to ask either myself or the crew. We'll be more than happy to help. Otherwise, if you know which one's good for you, then please feel free to look at whichever one you would prefer. All that leaves me to say is, thank you very much for joining us. I do hope you enjoyed the cruise on the Ouse. If you're staying in York, please enjoy the rest of your stay. And if you are travelling home, then please do travel safe. We could just ask that you remain in your seats, to stay away from any exits until we are safe and ordered, and then either myself or the crew will let you know when it's safe to go ashore.